Greetings and welcome back to Old Ways Rising Farm, where we're going to talk about saving tree seeds. And the subject of our seed saving this morning is a very interesting species called Osage orange. Before we get into it, I want to tell you a little bit about this species and why it's so interesting and why I'm so excited to find this particular seed collection. Osage orange, that particular common name, comes from the fact that the wood is bright yellow to orange in color and has some really interesting phytochemistry and even makes a great dye stuff. So you can boil sawdust from this species and dye wool and cotton various shades of yellows and oranges. Okay? It's a really useful tree in that regard. It's planted all over North America, and it's really useful for shelter belts, for wind protection, and for living fence, which is what got it planted over a very wide range. It's also a really amazing timber species. It's one of the hardest, most elastic, and most resilient woods in North America, which brings us to its second common name, bowdark, or bowwood in French. And that common name is fairly self-explanatory. It's the premier North American wood for making bow and arrow. Within its native range, has always been the premier bow wood for Native American peoples. And the traditional way to harvest it for that purpose is to find a horizontal branch, cut down a little bit into the top of the branch, and split a board off, leaving the branch and the tree otherwise largely intact. And that won't hurt the tree because another one of its properties is amazing decay resistance. On the same order as your locust in terms of ability to resist decay. In contact with the ground, the joke is that it will last one day longer than a cinder block. So, really amazing tree species with a lot of good permaculture uses, a lot of interesting things about it. And one of the most interesting things about it is its history. Its native range is very, very restricted. It's a narrow 3 to 4 county wide swath starting in southeastern Oklahoma and then going down through Texas with a few other sporadic occurrences in adjoining states, probably having been planted historically by native peoples. Yet at the same time, there are individuals from the species growing in Zone 4. Well, how do you have a tree restricted pretty much to Texas that's hardy in Zone 4? And the answer is a quirk of historical biogeography. During the Pleistocene, all of the tree species were squished south. That area was much colder. Okay? Ice Age, right? Also during the Pleistocene, there were a lot of big fuzzy critters that were eating a lot of seeds and spreading them around in their dung. This is one of the species that was going to be eaten by one of those critters. We don't know exactly one, but think mammoth, giant ground sloth, and glyptodon here, right? One of those kind of critters. Big juicy fruits like this are only produced by plants as a seed dispersal mechanism. This is intended to be eaten and then defecated in some other location to spread it. So when the glaciers retreated, those big fuzzy critters also went extinct. So there was nothing to spread it back north. So you have the genetic potential for extreme cold hardiness in a tree restricted to warm climes. But then when people encounter it and decide, oh, that's a really cool tree, I want to plant some of those on my farm, it gets spread back all over the place. The problem is, having been restricted for a long time in a warm region, there hasn't been the evolutionary impetus, the selective pressure, as we would say, to concentrate and express those cold hardiness genes. So if you take seed, just random commercial seed that was collected somewhere down in Texas or Oklahoma and planted up here in Pennsylvania, New York, or New England, some will go, but you're going to have a large percentage of failures, trees that die, and trees that fail to thrive. So if you're planting it in the north, you really want to find a seed source which is from a northern climate. Okay? This brings us to a game that Renee and I call drive-by botany. It consists of me driving along the road seeing, ooh, and then Renee saying, what? What'd you see? Meanwhile, I'm looking for a place to pull over and go and look at something. Right? That's how I got these seeds. I found these along a roadside at low elevation in the Finger Lakes. So this is a zone 5 climate where these were growing. I was able to kind of look up the bank, and there was a big patch of them of multiple ages, so they are successfully reproducing in that climate. And a whole bunch of these were on the road in various degrees of squishedness by car. And I was able to get a bucket of these, and we're going to save some seeds from them. So let's look at the structure of these fruits, where the seeds are, and how we go about separating the seed from the pulp efficiently in a big fleshy fruit with small seeds. So the taxonomy of these Osage oranges is evident in the fruit. The scientific name for it is Maclura pomifera. It's in the Moraceae family, which is your mulberries and figs. And if you look at this, if you're from temperate regions and you've seen green mulberries before they're ripe, you should find this, wrinkly texture of this aggregate fruit fairly familiar, right? This is kind of like a gigantic unripe mulberry. If you're from tropical regions and you are familiar with breadfruit or jackfruit, it should look even more familiar, although in that case we're going to say it looks like a small breadfruit or jackfruit. Now those are both edible, this is not. The fruit of this is very astringent and full of that waxy gooey latex that you also find in breadfruit and jackfruit, and it's just not something that you want to eat. But if we split it open or look at one that has been split open by a car, you can see you have all of these little ovaries compounded together, and they all have these small seeds in them. Okay. Now, you can pull these apart, start breaking these fruits apart, and, like right there you can see a couple of seeds. You can't pick these out with your fingers manually, right? But they're going to be dirty, and that's going to be a big pain in the neck. So we need an easier way to do that. So I'm going to start by just kind of breaking them up a bit here. So my softballs are a little smaller. I'm not worried about shredding them too finely, because we're going to get pretty violent with them here in a minute, and it's not going to matter. I have heard stories of people breaking these up and feeding them to pigs. I don't know if it's true or not. I think it deserves a little experimentation. They're not toxic per se, they're just very astringent. And then we're just going to take a stick and we're going to smash these up to the greatest extent possible. Stick's been on the rotten side, it's the other end. We're just going for the giant mortar and pestle here. Mashing them like so many astringent green potatoes. Just to kind of break down that waxy outer coating, so that the next thing we're going to do goes faster. The edge are kind of resisting the treatment. Pull them into the middle a little bit. We are almost there. A little bit of a workout, but not too bad. Okay. We have our mashed Osage orange fruit. You can see we're already starting to liberate some of those seeds just by that mechanical process. Here. There you go. See those seeds coming out. Now, some have been liberated, but not all. The rest of this job is going to be accomplished by fermentation. So we're going to pour some water in this bucket of squished fruits. Just kind of stir them and mash them a little bit more to make sure they're not stuck to the bottom. Okay. And then that bucket of slop, getting stuck in the rot pocket there in the stick. This bucket of slop is going to be put aside and allowed to ferment for on the order of a week and a half to 2.5 weeks. This is one of those things that's kind of weather dependent. You just have to watch it and observe and see what's going on. But what we want to have happen is we want all of these pieces to break down, liberate all of these seeds. And then we're going to use flotation to remove the pulp from the clean, ripe seed. The ripe seeds are going to sink like that one just did. Unripe, unfilled seeds and the pulp will float. So, I am going to leave this sit for 2 weeks, and you will see how it comes out in a matter of seconds. It's been about 2 weeks since the last clip was filmed. The only thing that I've done off camera was about a week ago I took the masher smasher that I used to pound these to a pulp in the first place and gave a little bit more mushing to some of the bigger chunks. It has fermented well, it has liquefied well, and now we're going to proceed to the final cleaning of these seeds. You can see there's very few large pieces left in here. The flesh has almost entirely gone to nothing. So to clean the seeds, what we want to do is we want to pour off all of this gooky gunky water while being careful not to pour off any of the good clean seeds. So that will all have sunk to the bottom. I'm just going to pour off as much of this as I can without getting too close. Now, I do like to do this pouring into another bucket. The simple reason for that is that if I get clumsy and pour off more than I should, I can always do it again. If I pour it onto the ground, then that's all she wrote, okay? So we're just going to do this and rinse multiple times. Don't ever pour off the last quarter of the liquid. And now that I know I don't have any good seed on there, that can just go on the ground. Nothing wrong with it, nothing nasty, nothing dangerous. Keep rinsing. Keep rinsing, keep pouring, keep doing the thing. Just keep an eye on it so that you don't get good seed coming out of the bucket. Little ice in there. These buckets sat out overnight. Is this still in frame here? Still cleaner and cleaner water every time. I can see my good seeds in the bottom now, and I'm just going to pick out some of these last clumps that didn't totally come free.
They're not in frame.
Okay. Little handwork. There's our good seed.
Mm-hmm.
We're very close to clean on these. Another bucket's full. You can see how every time I do this, more of the organic goop floats up. But the seeds stay sunk to the bottom. It's actually got a little bit of seed in it. Okay, squish them out. One more and we're good. Here's where you have to be careful, because I have very little other than the clean seed at this point. Okay. And now if you can see, I'm leaving that last little bit of water there. That's where Mr. Strainer's going to come in. Collect our final batch of seeds. And you can see the result of this process. A nice big batch of clean seed for very little effort, actually. So I'm going to dump them out of the strainer into a bowl and then just spread them out as far apart as I can, and we will just let these air dry indoors. And there is our batch of Osage orange seeds. And all that's left to do is the next batch, because I'm slightly obsessive. So, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. I hope that you will go and find and collect and clean some amazing seeds for your own farms. And I hope you'll join us next time here at Old Ways Rising Farm.